Good evening. I'm making this video and I'm going to make some future videos um, because of someone else. A friend of mine who, while he knows a lot of what I know and maybe even some more, he also is good at what he does, and he has a tendency, though, to not be very nice. He's rough around the edges. He's pretty harsh. He doesn't easily make friends, which explains why most of the people that have known him in his life have not kept in touch with him, but I have. We're both veterans of the food and beverage industry. We've both worked in restaurants. We've both worked in the distillery world. He has a little time with brewing, but that's not something I was into, so I won't be talking much about that. But I am going to talk all about the distilling side of things. And the reason why is because in my time as a distiller, which is going back a few years now, I've made a lot of friends. He has not. He is more likely to call them out on what he doesn't like about their operation than he is to give them any kind of praise. And while sometimes I agree with him, there are times where I think maybe he should, show a little more support and be a little bit more friendly about it. So I asked his permission to take some of his tasting notes on things that we've tasted together, and not really go against them, but go over the same product with his notes next to me and see where him and I differ, and maybe kind of get his words out there, but in a friendlier, slightly more accessible way, and hopefully not rub everybody the wrong way. So we're going to start with this video, and a lot of my videos are going to be that. I'm going to respond or corroborate, even in some cases, some of his product reviews. Some of those we may agree on, some we may not. But we'll also be doing some videos where I do blind tastings and maybe have you guys guess what it was I was tasting. We'll see. I'm working on that idea, but for now, I'm going to do this. So the first thing we're going to do is something that was handed to me, and I had to share it with him because my personal opinion of it was not good. So I knew he would agree, but he was just as harsh as me. But this is one where we actually came pretty close to having some sort of agreement. So what that is going to be is in this glass right here. I have the Highland single malt Scotch whiskey from Trader Joe's. This one is a bourbon cask finish, and I'm just gonna read right off the bottle because this is the best source, but also because they say a lot of things that if you know distilling, you understand. So matured in oak casks until, according to them, it has achieved the perfect balance of aromas and flavors. Second cask is a first fill bourbon cask that they've purchased, which is not uncommon by any means. And that increases the development of flavor. Okay, that's all wonderful. Distilled, matured, and bottled in Scotland, which you should know automatically by the fact that it has the word Scotch on the label. But nowhere on this label does it actually name a distillery or anything, and there are some there's some research that can be done to find out exactly who made this for Trader Joe's. I'm not real concerned about that at the moment. As far as flavor and accessibility and whether it's worth the money you pay for it, that's what I'm really going to go after here. Now, on the nose, which is where I really want to start, but I will say this is a pretty good, this light on the camera is not really giving you the best idea of it. It's more of a gold amber. It's really just on the higher end of gold. It's not as light as this camera makes it seem in this lighting. It's a little bit deeper than that. But on the nose, I get a little bit of peat, not much, some sweetness. It's pretty subtle, but I can smell the malt. I can smell a little bit of caramel, and of course some smoke and some campfire, but otherwise it's relatively clean. That slight sweet note that I'm getting is not the vanilla that you might get from the barrel. It's more sugar. I have a distinct notion that this is possibly back sweetened. On that note, we kind of agree, me and my friend. His name is Joe, by the way, so I'm not going to keep calling him my friend. But Joe, he does have one extra note that I don't agree with, and his note was that he very clearly smells a column still. I smell it, but I don't think it's as pronounced as he was getting it. And it's also not unheard of or strange, so I'm not real concerned about that. If I stopped drinking column still products, there would be very few to drink. Of course, I know all the people in Colorado who make those things, so I'll be okay. Now, one thing that I don't like is there's no age statement on this particular product, which isn't necessary, but I just like it. So no actual age statement. It's a Highland single malt, and for me, the hint of peatiness isn't strong enough for a Highland, in my opinion. I really would feel more like I'm smelling a lowland as opposed to a Highland. But it doesn't smell horrible. And on the tail end of that nose, I get gummy bears. And not necessarily the good ones. The cheap gummy bears. Now, before I taste it, I'll let myself kind of air out a little bit, but I do want to point out some of the things that Joe got were sweetness, the column still burn that travels across your tongue. That is all there, but let's just go ahead and see where we're at. Okay, so right off the bat, there's a burn on the tip of your tongue, but that burn doesn't really go away. It just travels, goes all the way back across your tongue. That is a pretty good indicator of at least multiple distillations, but likely column still product. Big deal? Not really. It is an 80 proof product. tastes like it. It's not too bad of a burn. It doesn't hurt to drink. Pretty smooth, but there are some harsh qualities to it. I get some dried fig. Excuse me. A little bit of apple and apricot, but I also pick up something that Joe didn't pick up. And on the finish, I get just a hint of rose. I don't know how many people have eaten rose. Something that in my line of work I have done on numerous occasions. I have a couple of people in my world right now who love to use rose in dishes, and that's fine and dandy, but that's what taste I get. It's the back end floral rose garden kind of flavor. When I give it a little bit of air and a little bit of time, you can give it a drop of water if you believe in that sort of thing. With this one, I don't feel like it really needs the drop of distilled water to open up. It's doing just fine. But it is sweet in a way that I don't love, and that is typically an indicator of being sweetened after production, usually in the aging process. If I had to guess, I would say in the first barrel, they're adding some sugar. It's not heavy enough flavor to be molasses, but there is some sugar in there. I do still get all the campfire and all the stuff that I should get from a Scotch, but I don't really taste much peat at all. I get a little bit on the smell, but not in the flavor, and that's not necessarily a problem. I don't love peat, but there is something about this, and it's probably the fact that they initially aged in what most likely were bourbon barrels, and then a second age in a different bourbon barrel. I get quite a bit of bourbon that comes through, and to me it tastes like if you blended a lowland single malt and some Highland single malts with a bourbon, and that's what you put in this bottle and sold. I don't know if that's what this company did for Trader Joe's, but that's what I taste. Now, as far as like if I was rating this, and I'm usually going to rate these as I go with a 1 to 10 range, and on a 1 to 10 range for this, I'm pretty low. I'm going to give it a 4. It's not bad, does the job. Not good enough in my opinion, so not good enough to be a regular drinker of it. I'm not going to pull this out on a nightly basis. It's just going to sit on my shelf until someone that is maybe less in tune with their whiskey tastes comes along. I don't want to necessarily shout out the person who gave me this bottle. They gave it to me because they didn't like it either, so we'll leave it at that. But giving it a rating of 4 out of 10, I'd be willing to push that to 5 because it's not awful. It doesn't make me want to gag. It's not killing me, but it is not what I would want typically in a Highland single malt. But it is a $16 bottle. At least that's what the guy who gave it to me got it for. So I personally didn't pick this up and buy it, so I couldn't verify that, but I believe the guy. I trust him, that it was a $16 bottle with a 4 to 5 out of 10 rating. So as a value for your money, it's a pretty good value. If I was rating that out of 10, I'd say 7. Does the job, but it's not too expensive. You don't feel guilty buying it, but you may not love everything about it in the morning. So I think it's okay if you shop at Trader Joe's and you want something like this, you know, it's not bad, but it's also not great. So no shade thrown at Trader Joe's. I don't shop there. It's not close to my house. I just have no reason to go there. So don't take offense, Trader Joe's, but I'm not a fan of this one. I'll have to try some more of your spirits before I make a decision on your overall judgment as a spirit seller. So that all being said, I'm gonna say goodnight and cheers.